Everybody has to be able to bounce back. What is the fallout from Super Bowl 59 and where do they go next? It starts right now with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest here on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We appreciate you making us your first listen today. Check out another Locked On show for your next listen. Check out Matt at ChiefsDigest.com, where you can get him and all of his work, as well as his YouTube channel. Same name, just here on the YouTube platform. You can find me at NFL33.com and RGR Football and Rogue Analytics because, hey, it's draft season as of right now, so I'm off and going. We're going to have a lot of fun. This is a tough one, but we're going to get through a bunch of how do you bounce back? What's the next thing? What comes next? How do you get your mind off of this? And we will start with how things fell, what stood out to Matt. Man on the ground, got to see it live and in person, something that I can't say that I've been able to do, but we appreciate you guys being here, especially you ever dares. Check out the text line at 816-357-8781. Matt, you are fresh off of 4 quarters of ugly football and a 750-mile drive home. Tell me, upon reflection, what stood out about just why they were not able to right the ship during this ballgame?
Yeah, I mean, it's still hard to kind of put a finger on it and really truly grasp. This was a shocking outcome. I mean, it was just surprising from all accounts and all the way around. But I mean, one, I think you absolutely have to obviously tip your cap to the Eagles because they came out, they played with more energy. They won it. I mean, they've out physicaled the Chiefs. There was absolutely no doubt about it. They made this into a backyard brawl, and they took the fight to the Chiefs, especially in the trenches, and that's where I thought this game would be won and lost, and it certainly was because the Eagles absolutely owned it on both sides of the football. They were just a tougher team on Sunday, and then when it comes even to the X's and the O's, I think the Chiefs got out-coached a little bit, and that's surprising because I would not have taken, even Kellen Moore, I would not have taken Sirianni and Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio up against the Chiefs trio of Nagy and Reid and Spags. I mean, I would have gone with the Chiefs and the coaching staff, but Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio had absolutely great game plans. They executed it perfectly. Chiefs did not have superior game plans, and they did not execute them.
And that's what it came back to me post-game. I know we weren't able to talk the other night, but it was the game plan, especially on offense, that bothered me. But before we get to that, Spags, I would argue that he was neck and neck with Kellen. I would call it a draw at that point because they were able to accomplish their top goal, take that away. I do think there was a couple of lapses. When you started into your man sets and you're turning your back to Hurts, he hurt you a couple of times. And obviously, when you're taking those chances and you're trying to make sure that you guard against the run, I expect a couple of big plays. When one guy gets loose against man coverage, that's kind of the dice that you're rolling there. Would you say that it was less than even, or was it way more a difference in terms of performance and gameplay?
I mean, yeah, I think you could probably argue it was maybe a little bit more of a draw in the first half. Second half, I think it definitely got tilted a little bit more the other direction and into the Kellen Moore's category because they took obviously the deep shot to hit that. They challenged the Chiefs. I mean, they didn't go away from anything. I mean, they threw it at Trent McDuffie. They weren't worried about that. It wasn't like they were just trying to target anybody particular. They weren't just necessarily targeting Jalen Watson and Shamari Connor. They were throwing the ball wherever and whenever they wanted to. And in the second half, I think some of the breakdowns that the Chiefs had were on their own. I mean, it was the front four, I thought, in an effort to try and get to Jalen Hurts and just get some pressures. I think you saw, the discipline fall apart a little bit. There was a lot more freelancing and just trying to go after the quarterback any way you can. Defensive ends were coming wide, trying to, get there as fast as they could. And when you do that and the tackles are not, just going straight ahead and maintaining their lanes, all of a sudden Jalen Hurts got plenty of room to scramble, and he took advantage of that. So, I thought discipline is just as far as just, and there were some even penalties-wise. There was even some, I thought, discipline breakdowns in the second half. But specifically as far as, doing your job, I think that everybody was trying to make a play. And when everybody's trying to make a play, nobody makes a play.
Well, the thing that stands out to me about what you just said was that even at the half, I didn't see hardly any, maybe a minute adjustment here or there, but they just weren't able to reset, particularly on the offensive side, where they went away from what worked so well against the Bills with the quick game and actually running the football. Was this just you got into your tendencies, and we all know that we can slip away from the run game in this offense and those kind of things? Was there something else more at work?
I mean, it felt like there was a lot of different things at work, and in particular, watching the game live, I may fail differently on successive watchings and everything, but it felt like not only just the offense, but Mahomes specifically got out of rhythm and got off schedule pretty quickly in this game. I mean, you mentioned the game plan and the play calling. Why you got away from the run so quickly? I mean, it wasn't a matter of not running the ball in the second half. It was a matter of not running the ball on the first couple of possessions. I think your first 10, 11 plays, one run play, it's pretty predictable. I mean, if you're throwing the ball like that, you pretty much know what the Eagles are going to do. And let's face it, the Eagles didn't throw anything at the Chiefs that they haven't seen before. Rushing 4, dropping 7. I mean, you go back to 21 Bengals. That's been the game plan that everybody throws at the Chiefs. What did the Eagles do differently? I mean, the ferocity was one. I mean, they certainly had the front four that matched up very, very well with the Chiefs and their offensive line. I mean, does this play out differently with a different left tackle and Joe Thuney at left guard? I don't know. I mean, maybe it does. But, I didn't think there was anything spectacularly, creative that Vic Fangio did. I mean, he did what he does. I know, Next Gen Stats says there's 0 blitzes. Film maybe says there's 1 blitz. So maybe that's tweak that in there. But the fact that, the Chiefs and the Chiefs conversely got 0 pressure. I mean, for the most part, and I'm being facetious there and hyperbolic, but at one point, Ryan, in the game, and once again, Next Gen Stats, so you could take it with a little grain of salt. At one point, Next Gen Stats had the Chiefs with more blitzes than they had pressures. That's not ideal.
No.
So that just circles back to exactly, how on both sides of the football and on the lines, how this just did not work. Neither side worked on Sunday.
Well, I'm not one to dwell. So what we're going to do is take a look at what the ramifications are and how this affects free agency, which is right now, around the corner, coming at you live. We'll do that right after this. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get into it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place your live bets throughout the game, start to finish. Even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can get there. You can stay in the action. And if you want to go looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlay. You got to love that because it's a new aspect. You can just roll it into it. If you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking up a player who just hit a 3 and you think he's getting really, really hot, you can do that in the app, and it makes it super easy. Right now, our new FanDuel customers are getting $150 in bonus bets if you first get a $5 bet that wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets right now. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the NBA. I'm not trying to gloss over anything here, Matt, and I know that you'll have breakdowns at ChiefsDigest.com and Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform, as well as 41 is the mic. I love the podcast, so I'm interested to hear what you say when I'm not actually asking you questions, but that's what this show is. So, in retrospect, a lot of sour taste in everyone's mouth coming off of this game. What does that do to the general proclivity of guys that are up in free agency to want to return? Yes, you've been to the mountaintop, but you just came up short. Do you think that has a negative effect on wanting to be back?
I mean, I can't see it having a big factor because, one, it's a locker room that's good to be in. So the players who have been here, they understand it. And especially if they're veterans who have been in some other places, they understand that it's better here than just about any place else in the league. You got a player's coach. Even if it's tough, it's a good place to be. It's a solid organization. You know where you stand. It's a team that generally takes care of people, notwithstanding some of the grades on some of the facilities, which the Chiefs are improving. So I think you have to give them credit for that. I mean, this is I think the first year where you really truly saw the Patrick Mahomes effect take full effect, in that you saw a bunch of guys come here specifically, including in season, because they wanted to win rings. And I think that's still going to continue because the Chiefs are still going to be one of those teams that you expect to compete for the Super Bowl year in and year out.
I completely agree with you there. And there's a lot of question marks this particular time. Some almost farewellish type messages from players post game. In particular, I wanted to ask you about Justin Reid and the impression that you got from him following this game and what's happened since. He does sound like he's kind of clearing the path where I'd love to be back, but it probably isn't going to happen. What's your read on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I mean, especially because that's the one position where the Chiefs have drafted, knowing what is ahead, knowing what openings that they have, and seem to have hit. Without Justin Reid next season, you look at it, okay, you got Jaden Hicks, you got Jamari Connor, you got Brian Cook, who I think will be better, and the Chiefs are optimistic he'll be better in the second year coming back from surgery and during last year's offseason. So, I mean, the writing's kind of on the wall a little bit there. I mean, you can see the Chiefs being potentially interested in maybe another piece back there, but do you need a starter? I think the Chiefs are going to probably say to themselves, no, I mean, they don't need a starter. They probably need maybe another young guy, maybe just a piece to just kind of fill them out and complete some of the things for weaknesses maybe that they have. But can they afford Justin Reid? And again, I think from the cost standpoint, no. I mean, will they lose him, miss him? Absolutely, because he's got intangibles that, you just can't replace.
Yeah, it comes back to always resetting that room. We saw it with Tyron. We saw it now with Justin Reid. That is one that I think you can keep an influx of talent there out of the draft, and that kind of sets that off to the side. So of the big names outside of Justin, including Nick Bolton and Trey Smith, obviously I think both are going to get interest outside of Kansas City. If you had a pick off of what they're acting like, what do you think is the likelihood for either of them?
I mean, as far as the big names go, I mean, Trey Smith, you're not going to expect back. Nick Bolton is a possibility. I think it's still going to be tough because he can definitely, I think, it just takes one team to really fall in love and throw some big numbers out there. That I think is going to be difficult. And there's no doubt. I mean, the Chiefs are going to view it going forward that, their big swings. I mean, they're not going to be able to necessarily be big players in free agency just because of the cap, and members that they have and the places that they have. They're going to have to draft smart. So what are their big moves? And remember, I mean, part of drafting smart means that they want to hold on to as much draft currency as they can and not necessarily be making big trades like they've done in the past. So, where are they going to be making their big swings? Probably making their big swings and keeping their own guys. So it's the ones that, not the ones that are getting away, but the ones that you're keeping. And, Trent McDuffie's going to be at the top of that list. That's somebody that you're going to want to pay. So, it's not even so much about which ones are some of the guys who are free agents this year that you're not going to pay. It's more which ones you're going to keep. It's a little bit about looking for the future and saying, okay, who can they extend right now that they need to, especially because of Trent McDuffie, I think is only going to go up in price the longer you wait to get it done.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's preparation for the road ahead, maybe a little bit more so than they've had to do recently. There are a number of guys as well that have made contributions to this team. Well, one in particular that actually really hasn't, but does seem to want to return. For Charleston Menahue and DJ Humphries, both seem to have expressed interest in wanting to be back. How do you feel about the situation for both of them?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it comes back to, I think anybody can come back at the right price. And, and that's the thing. I mean, even when you're talking about DeAndre Hopkins, I think, include him in that conversation too. It's just that they can come back, but not going to be at the price that they were maybe used to being paid. And maybe not even at the price that, some other teams around the league might pay them. So, and I could see it at a couple of those spots. And certainly this is true with, guys who've been around for a while, because we've seen the examples with, I think Mike Dan is probably a really good example of a guy that, tested the market, still stayed with the Chiefs, at a decent price and a reasonable price. We've also seen, some guys, like Tershawn Wharton coming off the injury, seeing what's out there, but then coming back because, on the 1-year deal and 1-year prove-it deals, we've seen that with a number of guys. So I could see that continuing to kind of, be something that the Chiefs are saying, okay, hey, go test what you got, come back to us, let us know. And maybe there's guys that they keep early in free agency because they just don't see the markets out there. Maybe there's some guys that they circle back with later. They're like, you know what? We didn't replace you, so we'd still love to have you back. You're on the market. Hey, here, let's stay together. So I think you're going to see a handful of those deals too. I mean, so they're going to keep a little bit of this team together, but it's just going to be the biggest names. I think they're going to be the ones the hardest to keep.
That makes perfect sense. And the dollars that go into that are going to be troublesome. The cap, we're going to run that down for you later in the week and next week as well, folks, with Chris doing all of his research now. But I'm a little more concerned about the mentality of how they bounce back from this. What goes into it? That is going to be coming on the backside of this. Football season may be over, but basketball is in full swing, and there's no better way to stay in the game with PrizePicks, the best place to get daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 projections. And if you're right, then you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Easy, easy, easy. Get in on the Jayhawks. Go check out the Mizzou Tigers. Get into the action. You'll love the promos like Taco Tuesday, where you can get discounted player projections for an even better value. Download the app today and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $50 instantly after you play a $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, for $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Do not forget, Chiefs Digest, NFL 33, RGR Football. Check those out as well. Matt, bouncing back, not something we talk about a whole lot on this particular show because of this particular run. But I don't think anything has felt so Matrix-like than Super Bowl 55 to Super Bowl 59. The concept of you played to tendencies, they broke their tendencies, and that's it. You didn't get surprised, is I guess what I'm trying to get at. How does that shock factor, and what was clear frustration across the roster during this ballgame, what does that do to the mentality as guys are coming down off the season? There's exit interviews, there's a lot of cleaning and obviously some regret. But what does that do to the next couple of weeks as you're trying to regenerate and get ready for the next season?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys in this organization and that are just as shell shocked as the fans are. So there's a little bit of that, and I think that obviously, hey, even amongst the fans, there's a tendency to overreact to this one game. But I think if you're Brett Veach, if you're Clark Hunt, or Andy Reid in particular, you're looking at this, and if your mindset changes significantly from where it was Sunday at 5:39 than it was 3 hours later. I mean, you can't let one game completely and totally decimate your viewpoint. Now the Chiefs have done that in the past. I mean, let's face it. After Super Bowl 55, the mantra from, was that you'd never let this happen again, was supposedly what, Brett Veach was saying behind the scenes as far as, with his offensive line, and meaning about how, not letting, Patrick end up in a situation where he doesn't have protection in a big moment like that because of injuries and attrition. Well, that kind of happened this year. So, I don't know if that mission was really accomplished. So that might be one area where you're looking at it and saying, okay, well, that was a failure this year on this team. But I think, at the same time, you got to be holistic about this whole thing. And you can't, and once again, you can't let one game be the judge. You've got to look at an entire season. And I think you got to look at, multiple seasons over your body of work, because let's face it, this is supposed to be a team with the best quarterback in the league and one of the best offensive minds in the league, should be having one of the best offenses in the league. And they haven't been that the last 2 years. So what's been holding them back? Is it just not having the right skill set? Is that not having the right players? Has it been just the injuries and bad luck? I don't know, because looking back to last year, I don't think you can really make that case. That wasn't really the issue. Sometimes it's just been about having the right mix and making sure that you're making the right decisions. But there's probably things behind the scenes that need to get considered too. And I bring coaching into that. And that's not saying anything about Andy Reid, because Andy Reid's sticking there. But, I think you also just have to look at your long-term development at maybe some positions that you haven't been as successful at. For instance, the Chiefs have been very successful at developing defensive linemen. They've been successful at developing linebacker secondary, but have they been as successful as developing offensive linemen? Have they been as successful as developing wide receivers? I mean, they've hit on a couple the last couple of years, and Tyreek Hill, but in between it's been kind of hit and miss. And you invested a couple of high draft picks in those receivers that are hitting the last couple of years. So, are there things that you need to look at, whether it's in your development program or it's your scouting program, as far as identifying talent that's going to fit in with your team? I mean, those are the big picture lessons that I think are more important to take away from this game, this season, in the last 2 years than any one game. I mean, if anything, this Super Bowl loss, to me, only should reinforce any concerns that you had before. It shouldn't have exposed all brand new ones.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with you. We've been talking about those two positions on offense for the last 24 months, if not longer. So unfortunately, maybe it takes a couple bites of the apple to get it corrected. I think that's probably still in store. We'll talk about the draft options here. Again, free agency is probably a less likely route. You can get some, I think, lower level players, but we've seen them bring 17 wide receivers into a camp just to get it whittled down to, you still don't know if you have 5 deep that you're ready to go to war with. It does take, I think, a little bit better cohesion between the front office and the coaching staff. The coaching staff in particular, as you mentioned, there could be some changes out there. Nobody was really able to speak for the last couple of weeks because of the playoff run. I think introspection for the coaching staff is very apparently needed in this particular outing. And to your point, not to overreact, but you also have to take the fact that your plan failed in multiple ways, and that is on the staff. Do you expect there to be a couple changes, wholesale changes, no changes at all?
I mean, you normally expect no changes because the Chiefs don't have any changes unless guys decide to move on. I mean, Andy Reid, Spags, Matt Nagy, I mean, they're all very loyal to their guys, and there aren't a lot of changes that have been made just simply because things aren't working or you need to go in a new direction. Certainly a possibility that a couple of guys may be offered jobs and leave, so I think that's actually could certainly happen with one or two of the coaches on defense. Could always happen on the offense too. But, the one thing that, kind of consistently have heard behind the scenes over the course of this season is that, and really even going back to maybe a little bit last year too, but, just to go through this season, is that, the Chiefs need some new voices on offense. They need some, fresh outside perspective. And so that's what only tempts me that, that maybe that Andy Reid will look for that, not necessarily because as we talked about, he's not the type to just make change for the sake of change, but are there ways that he could look for bringing people from outside the organization in? And for me, that's not bringing in same group thinkers. So that's not saying, oh, hey, Doug Peterson's available, bring him in. No, that would be bringing somebody else in that, that's younger, has a fresh perspective, but more importantly, is not from the Andy Reid tree that can come in with a different voice.
Just spice it up a little bit. Yeah. Give something that's a little more too prone to attack.
You didn't surprise Vic Fangio on Sunday with anything that you did. So you need to find a way to surprise people going forward.
And we probably should run down those specifics of what didn't get done, because the list unfortunately is kind of long, but we're going to make that another show because I do think that feeds into the players' ability to recoup from this as well. So final thought, Matt. Is this a team that needs to revamp anything structurally from the top down? Is there any burning flag here that has to be corrected in order to try to make a run and be that team that is expected to compete again next year?
I mean, again, to me, it's you look at this team this year and last year, and you put them together, and like I said, it's a 13-4 team. You average out these last two records, and if you want to say that the Chiefs won some games this year that they shouldn't have, well, they lost some games last year that they shouldn't have. A 13-4 team's a really good team. It's competing for a world championship every single year. If you're able to do that, doesn't mean you're the best team in the league, though. So I think that if you fall into the sense of security that you were a 15-2 team and therefore no flaws, I mean, the Super Bowl at least lets you know that you do have flaws. I think you should have known what those flaws were, and I'm confident the Chiefs did know what those flaws were, because I think that they were already starting to look forward to the offseason and just knowing what areas that they need to reinforce and think about. But once again, I mean, I go back to the mantra that, this game, if this game causes you to revamp and retool an entire organization that's working really well, you just run the risk of fixing the wrong things.
If it isn't actually broken, don't try to fix it. We're going to break down what is broken, what has to happen, and an early look at free agency. That's coming up tomorrow. So make sure that you join us. Like, sub, hit the bell, do all the things. Get over with Matt on ChiefsDigest.com. Chiefs Digest here on the platform. Matt, thanks for the time, and glad you made it home.
I appreciate it. And I'm going to go take a nap now before the Chiefs Digest live stream.
There you go. All right. So let's have a good time, folks. Thanks for joining us today. If you need that much more, get on the text line and check us out at NFL33.com and rgrfootball.com. Thank you for making this your first listen. Check out another Locked On show next.